does it rank on the bias scale?
For the Joe Rogan podcast?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this exercise real quick.
It's right there.
Here, I'm going to search, and like I said, you can go onto our homepage and search up to 5 sources per day. So, but I have unlimited searches since I'm in my company account. But let's see, Joe Rogan.
I just wanted to kind of comment. So Joe Rogan, I think the last analyst we talked to, an older fella, he kind of explained that. I think this is true if my memory is correct, that Joe Rogan Podcast contacted you guys because I think they didn't like their score or something, or they saw that they were too far right, and they're like, well, can you look at more, because we have people on the left on here. And so I think the factual credibility still stayed pretty low, but the bias moved a little bit closer to the center than the far right, because, you know, you had like Steven Pinker or Sam Harris or like other liberal type folks on. Is your understanding, or that's what I was told maybe like a year ago?
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of the Joe Rogan or Joe Rogan actually reaching out to Ad Fontes and asking for like a score check. But I've heard of other sources doing that. So they'll say, I don't agree with our scores. Just like you just mentioned, can you look at more? Or they'll, for example, if we rated something really problematic, sometimes they can come back and say, you know what, we're going to delete it. We're going to delete it from our database. So you try to find that article and you can't anymore. So that's going to raise their score. But that's actually good practice. Because you don't want a lot of, misinformation or unreliable information floating around them. But the Joe Rogan, you're right. And for something to be put on our chart, we have to rate a minimum of 15 articles or podcasts or video, what have you. So 15. And then if we haven't gotten to that 15, you won't even find it on the chart. That's my understanding anyway. And then with the more content we rate, the scores will be adjusted over time. But I was able to pull up the Joe Rogan Experience, the podcast, and if I hover over it, the reliability, you can see it averages out to a 16.87, so virtually 17, and a bias score of 6.28. And that's for the overall podcast. Now, these individual data points, these are the standalone podcasts. So it's wide ranging. The furthest left you have is it was called, it doesn't give us the name of the actual episode, but there's a link to it. And it got rated a minus 25. And just like you said, Jonathan, it could really depend on who the guest is. And the furthest right we have is a 24. Yeah. So, and then, there's been some podcasts in terms of reliability that have scored really higher than a 48. And then the lowest one, I think, is this one, an 11. So whatever this one was, or whoever was on it, was spreading false information, inaccurate, fabricated information. But these are, I must say, I really enjoy it when I have like a podcast session. A 2-hour session where we're just looking at podcasts, and sometimes these Joe Rogan podcasts or episodes are 2 hours long, so it's just we'll look at that one podcast for that shift, and it's exciting. I personally like the podcast. It's very interesting. So yeah.